All right. Well, who knows if this is working at all because OBS Studio has never been a friend of mine, but we are here and recording regardless, whether it is actually live on YouTube or not. And it's definitely live on my phone on YouTube, I guess. Welcome to a little intro for Tableau and digital analytics for web and social media, which is what I teach for our university class. It's my 16th semester teaching that. And today we're just going to go open up Tableau. If you haven't used that before, it's a data visualization platform similar to like a Power BI, which is a little bit more powerful than what you'd see with Excel. And we're just going to open up a simple file with 300 plus companies, a little bit of data about what categories and industries they're in, and a few key metrics that are just some estimates on like website visits and social engagement rate, and just get a feel for Tableau one step at a time. All we're expecting out of today is just a couple of graphs that look fairly good and get some practice using a lot of the different elements of the Tableau software there. There's a lot more that we'll cover over the next 14 weeks on social media and AI tools, like even testing some like Claude's new Excel plugin or Julius and Rose and all those other things. But first things first, let's get really comfortable with what data is, what data structures can kind of be manipulated and visualized into things that help us tell a data story. So long story short, we're going to make a couple graphs and go from there. This is just kind of a intro to everything and getting a feel for it. So no pressure, and have a little preview of maybe some e-commerce data or other things at the end. So with that, let's hop over to Tableau. And here I've got some already, popped up there just so we can see where we're going. We have this data that I have from Excel that you may, if you were in my cohort of awesome students that are learning digital analytics, marketers and designers, product people, and more beyond that, until even the creative arts and architecture and interior design. This is what you'd see in Excel. And it is just a wall of text. It's great data. One thing to call out of what you would see like really clearly in good data is that top row there. This is very tiny. We're gonna make it quite a bit bigger in a second. There. I can't even click the row in our Excel there. Let's use our keyboard and make that giant. Cool. So you can see in Excel, you have all these column row headers up here, like company name and category and all of that. And this is what good data looks like. A lot of times, if you download something from Statista or somewhere else, there's titles, there's other things going around. And why I love using Tableau and Power BI is it has a separation from what the source of the data looks like, whether it's this or something that's even more like a flat file or CSV, is that it's separated out from the presentation. One thing that made Excel super powerful, and the reason why it runs the entire world, is it's really easy for functional users like us that are not as technical to change how it's displayed and the data right there in one. And that also causes a lot of challenges on formulas across different sheets, across different tabs, and it can be kind of a bit of a mess. And you might accidentally delete something that you shouldn't have because it's right there in that same way that you visualize it. So we are going to bring this into Tableau. It's actually already there, but what you can do normally when you're starting a Tableau instance, you can do File New, and then you can, it might ask you on the left how to get to it. You can start with connect to data. And as you add more data on here, the first time you want to connect to it, and then you'll be going data, add new data source after that. You can choose an Excel file if that's what you have. In this case, we have a CSV, so that's a text file type, or you could click more and find it that way as well. But you can go ahead and choose text file and bring that in. So the data we're looking at is from the thinkermetrics.com site that has my group that we're learning from with. And maybe we'll open that up in the future. So maybe we'll, if you sign up there, there'll be a wait list for that. But you can double click on that and it brings you immediately to this data source tab. So you're not in the graphs and everything yet. You've got a little bit of a review of where things are. So it brought all this in and it figured out some of it automatically. And it's more or less good at that most of the time. But you can see company name, for example, is an ABC text string. So obviously you have uh, dimensions that are like categories, names, dates, all of those things that you are going to be graphing across with the metrics where you'll see numbers and decimals and all of that sort of thing. So this probably gets it pretty easily on what's accurate here on a text string versus not. If you do need to change it, you can click that little ABC or whatever it is there and change it to whether it's a decimal, a whole number, a date, or a date and time. So we'll be using date and time a lot when we look at time series graphs and making sure it's that smooth date across the way instead of treating it like a string where it wouldn't know quite how well to use that on the axes and everything. So we're looking pretty good here. We've got a whole bunch of data here, a lot of different metrics, some social media profiles, all that kind of thing. We'll have fun graphing that. So what you can go ahead and do is go to a new sheet as you're following along and do this. I'm going to pop into some of those other graphs to get a little inspiration because I think going from that flat table to a data visualization has a few different stages where you can kind of dial in what you might be able to create. And if it's the first time you've been doing this, it's a little bit hard to imagine what you could do. So we're going to check out that first. This is just a quick graph of the um, different business models of all of the companies in the data set. So one thing about this data set, it is like 300 companies. And in general, when you have a list, it's not every company that exists everywhere for the entire world. So when you make a statement about it in the title or in your conclusions about the mix of that data, it wouldn't be right to say that 240 companies or 73% of them are business to consumer. It's of the list that I have, whatever that is filtered by, whatever it's about. 240 of them are business to consumer, or we've got a couple business to consumer variations here that you might want to group later, and we'll talk about groups. But this is a pie chart, so that's one thing we can do here on the right side is the Show Me tab in Tableau, and there are a lot of options, and so they'll light up based on what data you have pulled already into your sheet from your data fields on the left. And so we have a pie chart here. You can change that to a bar chart and it'll pop it right there. So I'm going to do that. And you can, of course, adjust sliders to make things different sizes. And you can sort ascending and descending, especially if it's a little random order and you have things kind of separated. It's kind of hard usually to judge which one is longer than the other. We obviously also have color and everything else. So one thing to think about here too, we'll just leave the business model of the company is there and it has ABC. It's waiting for a measure for you to drop in. And we could drop, what I had in was the count. So it has this automatic count. So for each row of all those companies, it's just counting one. So you can drop that in there. It'll be that whole name of the file. So that wasn't actually listed in the data. It's just assuming that one row per company, which of course is an assumption, and sometimes that would fit or not. You have to maybe tweak that in a future way of doing it. But very simply, that is a count. So that'll give us the count of B to C in this case. You can do a few different things. So if you're on a Mac or a PC, you can use Command or Control a lot in Tableau. So you can press that on your keyboard, and I'm going to actually drop the same thing. So if you're pressing Command or Control, it'll stay where it is and also put it where you want it to be. So I can keep it there on the list with the numbers, and I made it color. And I'm going to change that automatic text where it just changed the color to a square. And so now we have a highlight table, um, which is kind of nice. So that was the same metric for both of them, which we can change those so you can see two things at one time. One thing to think about is you don't want to show your viewer all sorts of things that are really overwhelming at the same time. But it's also really nice to have a different way so they can quickly see what's different. So with that number there is one thing, which we have the count. Maybe we bring in something else like the total annual revenue per each category of that and make that the colors so you can see where that tracks pretty much the same. But let's see, let's make that the average annual revenue per the company. But and that doesn't like that one. Okay, live stream. Oh, the parentheses. It's always in a parentheses. There you go. There you go. Okay, cool. So this is whether we use this one or not for a graph you would like. The idea is you can show two things really quickly. And so right at the start, I could see B2B SaaS, which makes sense. Huge amount of average revenue per company because it's so efficient at just creating software, which is super scalable, super cheap from an operations perspective, but has a huge value there. And even though in the set, there's more business to consumer because people are probably more interested in those than like B2B accounting software, but that's how it goes. Cool. All right, so that's one thing. So let's pop through a few others and then we'll make some other graphs as well. Just getting a feel for the data is really what you want to do. See what's available to you and what might answer a question you might have about the data. So maybe it's comparing, in this case, like the growth of website visits to the actual total monthly visits of this. So this is one where you can drop in from the left. So you can drop in those monthly website visits into the columns, and so that's what it would look without it. You can make kind of cool graphs like this as well. And then I had the uh, monthly website visit growth. So you can see the total volume and it's growing. So if it's like really mature and the website isn't growing as fast, but has a massive number of visits, um, which would be, website growth high or the total visits high, but like the growth is low. So WordPress is one of the most massive sites that runs the technology behind it runs a lot of the web. They're not growing as fast now, especially with maybe vibe coding and hosting on Vercel or something. I don't know. So we've got some other outliers here too. We have Netflix, which is definitely a unique one in streaming and taking half of the internet streams, and their web page also being kind of like the app as well. You're gonna have a massive amount of website visits, but maybe not as much growth as some of these other growth ones there. So that's one thing to think about. What I would do actually is shrink that down. So on this view, we've got an outlier. If I'm in this space, they're all scrunched down there. You can always right click and exclude. So that's what I did for the next one for those few ones. So you can kind of zoom in and see what's happening here with this uh, tooltip, they call it in Tableau, which is a hover. So you can see what's on there. And you can actually change what's on that as well and drag whatever variables you want onto that tooltip type tooltip section in the marks tab right there. So we're going to be using a lot of this. You've got color, you have size, you have shape, and tooltip and detail. So we'll be talking about a lot of those as we go. But that's one way to do it. Um, Cool. Yeah, well, we can hop here to see some of those other features in this dot chart that we have, like on the Show Me tab up here. You can change that to a dot chart. Uh, and a scatter plot. So that consultants love those, especially the 2x2 matrices you'll see. And this one has a few more features you'll see as well. So on this one, we have color is here. If I had the Show Me tab, you'll see our filters on the right. So color is the industry. So is that fitness tech? Is that uh, motorcycles or luggage? And then the company name is now here. So a lot of the graphs you probably do want to make have the company name on it. And so you can simply take company name and uh, drop it onto the label, which is what I did right there. So you just drop it on the label. It's already there. You can see that. So if I take it off, it's gone. And if I add it back to the label, it's there. And you'll notice in this one, it is the same matching color as the icon, which is kind of cool. So if you click label, you can actually add whatever you want there. You can add other things. Right now, we don't yet have them on the label, but if you wanted to say put has app, if it has an app or not on the label, you can put yes. That sounds kind of weird. I would tweak how you say that, but this is kind of the idea for how label with multiple things would be on there. And you could say like has app, says yes app. I don't know, just to show you how the label edit function works. You can do that. Cool. Yes app. There you go. So this one's just market cap and annual revenue and a little bit more financy than some of you out there that aren't business school students, but it's a good way of showing some of the different features there on color. So you can take off industry and bring it back to color and go from there. Cool. We also did shape. So I did shape as category. So right now you can just have the circles. If you do choose circles, I kind of like the filled in ones for the most part. You can change the opacity and make it a little bit lighter. On some of them, you can add like borders and things like that. But You can also add another layer with shape. Granted, you don't want to overwhelm the viewer too much, but that is something you can do. And you can choose a different set of shapes as well. So clicking that shape button, you can choose the filled ones and assign it, and then see what happens there. Or there we go, sign palette. Okay, there we go. And they do have some other variations like I'm a big fan of those for the Harvey Ball charts that I teach in product management for competitive analysis. There's a bunch of others, arrows and weather or whatever. I don't know. So that's as well. Okay, jumping into one you probably do want to see is maybe social engagement by category. So I again have like a few different layers here. We have like the social engagement rate, which is a percentage here, and we have that in my data set here. And it's just an estimate. We'll be looking at the Rival IQ data that brings cross-platform social data from everywhere for that. But we just have kind of a rough idea here. And this one's by industry or category, by category. And what I thought would be fun to do is show like by category who has higher engagement rate. So like we've got really high engagement rate with like wearables and home and outdoor and athletic apparel. But the size, we did number of Instagram followers on average. So average and some are something to think about. So you really need to kind of step back from the data and the numbers to see if it makes sense to have a total, which usually totals can work either way on this category. Sometimes you want to see the total impact of that industry and have all of those different companies summed up to see that. And sometimes you want to see the average by the company within that industry. So it depends on what question you're trying to answer from that. And the trick though is with rates, you generally don't want to sum them up, or you really don't most of the time want to sum them up. So if you had like a 90% in class on one assignment and you had a 90% on another assignment, that does not equal 180%, obviously. You are going to be averaging those or calculating it differently for a class where it's weighted by the assignment category and everything like that. But what we have here too is size. So size was the number of Instagram and Instagram followers. So retail and e-commerce probably followed huge amounts. In this case, it's the sum. You could do the average, but it's still probably be bigger than some of these. But they also have a lower engagement rate, probably because there's brand loyalty and engagement in some of these other brands, whereas you're just buying it maybe through the retail or e-commerce store. I don't know. That's a hypothesis that you could check out. So we've got a few more inspirations there. I think we covered a lot of that. Just to kind of cover in this kind of data, we had industry and uh, the category. So just to show you how it's organized in that hierarchy of data, this one here, you've got industry on the left and company name on the right. And we have a filter, which is here. So one thing in Tableau, which you may want to use is filters. And so right now I'm only showing the beauty and skincare categories. And within that, what companies, what industries, and what companies. So beauty and skincare covers beauty and skincare and hair care, I guess. And that's how they're broken down. So what's fun is you can kind of get a feel for Tableau, swap these things around. Did you want to do company first and then see the name of the industry? Just try exploring, swapping it around, maybe bringing category here so you can see category then industry, or should you use industry and then category? And then really figure out what makes sense for you and your your viewers. Command Z is undo, by the way, in case you wanted to see that. Um, cool. Another thing I did here was the color is the sum of the monthly uh, visits for those individual companies. So you can see The Ordinary rocking it out there with 14 plus million website visits. And it's got, kind of a middle of the range engagement rate compared to the other companies there. But that could be for a lot of reasons. Could be they're engaging somewhere else. It's, Ulta or, um, and maybe they just don't need to engage in social media to tell everyone about hyaluronic acid. I don't know. The label two is the rate. So one of the principles in data visualization is to get the number where your eyes are going so it's easier for the user so you're not looking back and forth. And in this case, I dropped this onto label, which is right there. And again, I clicked label, and in the little um, font box, you can choose match mark color and make it a little bolder. Uh, you can also have it not do that and automatic. It's just the normal color, and you can change it to a single color if you want to do that. And you can even make the bars a little lighter, add a border if you needed some visual separation. And of course, you can order smallest to largest, largest to smallest with ascending, descending. And we haven't done this yet, but you can swap rows and columns, is what Tableau calls it. You'll see it also listed as transpose in Excel, and it's a little harder to read for this one for me. So you can do it this way or that way, kind of get a feel for which kind of presentation works for whatever format you are looking to do. Um, Also, we're getting into editing the axes. So this one added like kind of what the formula was there. I like to think more like a human and not like a robot. The sum of social engagement rate percent one, it should be a sum. So that should just be, I mean, technically it doesn't matter because we're just one row per company. So that won't change the number in this case, but it is the average. And this just says social engagement rate percent. That's what I'm looking for. Average or sum shouldn't really matter in the axes. So we want to think minimalist, think removing any extra stuff that is not useful for someone to see. So like you already see these are kind of cleared up because above this, this would have a row header that would say like company name, but we know these are company names, so you don't really need that. All right, I'm gonna pop up here in a fresh sheet to prove that I could do it from scratch on a live stream, which I don't even know is working, but that's how it goes here at Thinker Betters on the first time you're live streaming. I can't believe I'm a live streamer. I guess someone should buy me the cat ear headphones. Although, if you're in my class, you can't do that until 6 months after graduation for conflict of interest. So after that, fair game, send away. But I want to make sure we're doing everything with integrity and no bias in the grading of your results there. Cool. So let's see, what else can we do? We have company name I'm going to drop on the detail area. So now these are just all the companies, but there's no metric to graph it by. Company is a dimension, one of those things we graph things across. And maybe we drop in Instagram followers there. So that is the Instagram followers. And let's try with company name up here. You can see what it looks like as a bar chart. We're swapping rows and columns, transposing them, go smallest to largest, largest to smallest. So you've got Nike, obviously, with the lead on that. And here's company name. Like I said, if you want to hide this, you can click hide field labels for row, and you can edit the tab name and it'll automatically change the title. So you can say Instagram followers by, and here's your title. So I really recommend starting there with that. You can even change the color of your tab here. So change that to some green, and you can double click on that title. And up here, you can add all sorts of things, other different variables. You can say who has the most followers. We'll work on titles and everything later, but suggest a subtitle and making it a little bit smaller. And you can bold it, and we'll work on creating like a key takeaway or key question here, sometimes like a lot smaller, maybe the source, depending on if that's something that is helpful to show. You can change colors, you can do all sorts of stuff. So there you go. Speaking of color, you can right click on the back there and change the format, and you'll get this thing that opens up on the left. You can do a drop down for that worksheet, change it to gray. Obviously, you want to make sure contrast and everything is good. I'm not designing it all up here, but that's one way to do it. Really recommend getting off of those default colors and changing it up and adjusting everything so it looks good for you. But yeah, so there's a simple bar chart. You'll be seeing that a lot. There's a lot of different things you can do with that. Like we said, you can practice dropping in category before and after. You could drop it into a filter and say only athletic apparel and just focus there. think Nike might have been on shoewear or something, but here's apparel, um, shortened down. So you probably want to be creating a dashboard or something where you can see everything on one screen, or you have it filtered, or that instead of scrolling down to see these, you can also later on you can drop a filter on that's conditional. So anything more than maybe Danner makes some great boots. Love to go snowshoeing with those. Anything more than 195,000 followers, and then you can remove the rest from that analysis. Cool. All right. So let's try something else. Oh yeah, let's right click on that sheet and duplicate. So one good thing to do is to not always start from scratch. If you wanted to tweak some different things or focus on a few, maybe you only have four competitors, so you could command or control on your keyboard, depending on the PC. Say you had Patagonia and North Face, very, here's the old school or like 90s old school companies for outdoors and see if you could compare those. Um, Rab's too new. Let's do better ones. I don't like these. Outdoor research, Rab, um, Icebreaker, Mountain Hardware, and cool. Cool. So now that they're all cool, now that they're all highlighted, you can make that a group and call it like, mountaineering companies or uh, modern outdoor companies if you want, or you can just say, let's keep only. Let's just talk about those. Uh, let's focus down there. So a lot of times when you're presenting, you'll like show an overview slide that shows absolutely everything, but it's kind of like too detailed and it's hard to see when you're in the back of the room. And then you zoom in on the ones you're going to talk about and go from there. So you get context and then specifics and usually like three levels. So we'll talk about that much later a little bit maybe in stats we'll do that where we'll talk about the growth of an industry, the growth of a category, and then the growth of that company. So you've got kind of three levels to walk through there. Um, cool, so that's focusing down. Let's duplicate that again. I'm gonna bring off those filters. We have Instagram filters and or Instagram followers and company name. So I was thinking, what else do we want to do? What other kind of graph do we want to make? Um, let's see. Let's think about that. Kind of want to make another dot chart. Those are one of my favorite. Well, we haven't done a pie chart yet. Let's do a pie chart. Cool. That was that fast. It makes it really tiny in Tableau. Command Shift plus and minus should be. Let's see. Command Shift B. Yeah, Command Shift B. There you go. And Command Shift minus maybe does that. That's one way to do it. And you can also try the fit entire view and it did not order these up. So that makes it really hard. Pie charts have a lot of challenges and data visualization, a lot of people rip on them for most things. But if you were to look at like a class and like what major people are in or what industries compose the total revenue of e-commerce or something, that'd be wonderful for a pie chart in some cases. The small ones are obviously difficult to do, but the ascending and descending sort will at least help out a little bit kind of there. And then of course, command or control on your keyboard and you can drop that company name, keep it on color and also have it on label. And maybe even since there's not a lot of context to a pie chart, you can add the number right there. And if it helps, you can add the match mark color and bold. And maybe there's a lot of bolds. You don't, it's kind of like cap, like you really want to judiciously use caps, as you probably well know with your experience with millennials and boomers overusing it, but you can change one or the other to be bold. I do recommend just choosing the one you want to talk about. Maybe it's the number you're focusing on, maybe it's the company. But cool, we got Daylight Computers, an interesting one that I hope someone chooses for a project there. But there you go, we have a pie chart. It's not too hard from scratch. We could do that. So say you want to do category and drop in that count of the categories to see of this list how many are in each category, and it automatically did that bar chart with category in that. It didn't sort it, but you can sort it if you would like. You can flip it there and then you can hit pie chart and it'll take away the labels, but you can sort that out. It's good kind of even mix. I intended to get the data in even mix of companies, so this doesn't really tell you mathematically anything about the economy or anything, but you can certainly say of this data set, this is the mix that we have of companies represented. in our data, and that's how it goes. One thing on the color too, I am sick of this default color palette right now. So you can click color, edit colors, and they have a bunch of color palettes you can choose from. It's one of my favorites, Nuriel Stone. Can assign that, click yes. You can change them individually. Like if you have a company name, like you want Netflix to be red and Spotify green, you can certainly swap out and say like maybe audio is green and home and outdoor instead is whatever that color is and click OK. And I will soften that a little harsh there, maybe add a light border to break it up a little bit and call this company category mix. Awesome. I'm not checking the live stream because I have no idea if this is working and I think it'll just distract me. So we're going to go from there. I think we're pretty set on the company categories. Maybe if you wanted on the hover just to practice, you can also add, like, say, TikTok is what you're really interested in your presentation. You're doing a live one and you'll have Tableau up. You could drop that from here onto tooltip. And so now, oh, because we're not at the company level. Hold on. Let's do a dot chart and company name is on detail. We'll bring off category. Yeah, okay, that's good. And category we could put up here. And actually, let's do, what do I want to do? The count is the row, company name. No, I know what I'm gonna do. All right. Sorry, changing my mind. It's hard to do this live stream. Cool. Let's do webs for now. We want social. Let's do social engagement rates and Instagram followers. And we want company name as our thing. So these are all individual companies now. And I'm gonna do command on my keyboard and do that for Instagram followers to see our like total essentially reach. If you could get them all, make the shape a little bit cooler, the plus maybe for a follower. And we want company name on, oh, that was kind of company name on the label. Uh, cool. And we were doing TikTok. So now we should have their TikTok profile as we hover over it. Again, with this, it has the different things you can insert here. Anything you drop in to that marks tab on tooltip, or if you're using a label that way, and you can change this stuff too. Like you don't have to say company name because it's obvious. So don't just take what the computer gives you, make it say what you want. You could even just say, you can move followers to after the number. You can even write a sentence. So I'm actually a huge fan of like writing out a sentence with these little variables that when you insert with these little carets around them, it'll just fill it out and speak like a human in more narrative form. So um, as a TikTok profile on that. I mean, that one's a little weird, but like uh, Nike has a Instagram following of 30 million users or whatever it is. Sounds a lot better than that. And of course, you can do colors and all that kind of thing. So that's our tooltip. You can see the profile right there as you go. Not that these are really obvious ones, but just something you can play with for that. Sweet. All right, so I'm going to call company data for this function done for now. And just to show you a time series chart, which is something later in the week that my cohort is working on, we can pop on over here. And I've got a few things up that we will look at. So e-commerce optimization, and there's a great video on the channel for that, whole playlist of different things on looking at that checkout flow and a sales funnel of going to an e-commerce site or app where you land on a home page, add something to carts, fill out your address, maybe like 3 to 19 more steps depending on if you're doing a credit check, maybe mattress delivery, and all sorts of other complexities around upselling and options and all that kind of thing. But what's fun here is we can look at the different subtleties of all the trends across those steps. So someone landing on a web page, on a home page, or directly to a product page. Different campaigns, different demographics, different, including different countries, might have a higher or lower likelihood to convert. They might be on different A/B testing variations of those campaigns on that site where they're experimenting with different ways to present things and different flows and different buttons and everything like that. And so it's not just enough to say the number of people ordering maybe a wireless phone or a Nike pair of shoes or an LA Gear pair of shoes, the coolest brand from the 90s with the LEDs. That's coming back a little bit. It's great to look at that conversion. And conversion is just how many people from one step made it to another, and you'll do that dividing that second step by the first one, and making it a percentage if you would like. But long story short, that is the conversion rate. So we're looking here at shoes, and this one is the home to order conversion rate that I did. That's just how many people landed on the home page, how many made an order, and I have two different products here. One is shoes and one is slides, which slides, I guess, are a type of shoe, but you get the idea. Uh, and to see if they're the same. So sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different, and it's looking at it over time in a statistically significant way to see what the trends are. And this is just the overall one. So when you're doing this kind of analysis, you'll also look at like, okay, that was from home to the final order, but what about from um, adding a product to cart that you saw on the product page? And then getting from that cart to shipping. So, like maybe shipping is really expensive and not free, so you might have a drop off there, or maybe the payment options someone wanted weren't there. Maybe they didn't have Apple Pay and there was too much friction to like figure out what your PayPal password was because you forgot it. So things like that give you insight on what needs to be fixed. If you just see the orders going up and down and there's this kind of pattern, it's like, what do you do? So you actually have to get more granular to be able to answer the question of at what point in the funnel were there issues, and then you can investigate how to solve them. So long story short, we're going to open up a new file and get that data. So in this case, I'm going to connect to data since it's going to be a fresh file. It's not connected to any of the company data that we've been working with. It's just this mock data about LA Gear. It's not real data because this is not the kind of data someone would share with you. It's just in general what would work, that you would see in like an Adobe Analytics or other analytics tool that's tracking those different pages along the way so that you can understand that sales flow funnel conversion and optimize which pieces of that'll work. And here we go. So we have that data right here. Gonna pop it up. And again, this is the Tableau tab. It's got this Apple put a selfie light around Tableau. No, I can't see it. Okay, I guess that's good. New to the MacBook Air and great feature that I cannot see anything. Cool. Although you can see my face. You can see it brought in date. So that is something new that we didn't cover in the graphs before. It's got a little calendar there and it's date. So in this case, it's just a regular date, not a date time. If you're looking at social media data from like Rival IQ's exports, for example, that will give you a date time, of course. So you can see exactly when that was posted and figure out what time zone as well. But this is a regular date, and then you have which product, you have the different visits to each of those home pages, the About Us Why story, product detail page, the cart page, and we have a couple different steps for checkout, for address, shipping, payments, the confirmation page, and then the order page. Sometimes there's a little bit of a gap in that final confirmation orders, maybe there's an error or something like that, then there's canceled orders. So what if you like click cancel immediately? Really depends on the site that you're on, whether they can actually pull that off or they message you the next day and say it's already shipped, which is happened to me quite a bit. And then I have some extra data as well there. There's some returns data, maybe some extra little bonus data as well after that. And we don't have campaign IDs here, but that is something both internal and external campaign IDs are something you might see when you're running the real campaigns. Is it coming from a Facebook campaign, or is it the internal campaigns that are on the website that are promoting different things? So that's what we got there in the data source tab. You can hop into a new sheet and now we can drop in date. So that's the big thing I was talking about. It immediately defaulted to year. It's got a little plus. You can add like quarter and keep going by. But what I'm going to recommend is just right clicking on the year date. If you don't have a right click on your mouse, get a real mouse. I'm sorry, Apple, you've only made two bad products. It's the that mouse that does not have a right click that is very good, and numbers for spreadsheets, which is the most garbage piece of spreadsheet software that's ever been made that messes up with your files. So please don't use that. If you do need to open up in a spreadsheet the data to clean it up a little bit, use Excel first or Google Sheets. Don't use numbers. It tends to save some extra stuff on it that then Tableau doesn't like to import. So no good for Apple on that product, but great for so many others. Long story short, click exact date. Now we've got the date there, but we don't have any data. Let's just for fun, we can drop in orders. And so now you can see, let's hide the show me tabs to get a little bit more real estate there. And now we can see our data. Now we've got a different mark on our marks tab, which is automatically set to the line graph. You could use a bar graph. You could fill out the line with this so you can see it a little more easily, but we'll stick with the line for now. And you can even make it thicker depending on your presentation, whether that makes sense or not. You can choose what kind of a path it is. It's weird ones, but it depends on the data you're doing, whether that will make sense. All right, so we'll do two things and then we'll wrap up. One thing we can do on top of this, it has one color, but we will end up making a conversion rate here. So let's do that first. So we can right click in this space, or it's in the menu and like two other spots, and you can create a calculated field. And we're going to call this uh, home to order conversion rate. So this is just kind of the overall conversion rate. You could look at the product detail page to conversion rate, and then we've got an error. So we click that because I didn't type anything in there. In some Tableau, you can drag and drop here. For some reason on my Mac, it's not letting me do that, but you can also just start typing and it'll fill in the variables up there. So we have home. So I'm going to type home and I'm going to click it there. It'll put the little brackets around it. Um, and I have orders. So I'm going to do orders divided by home divided by. There you go. So there is our conversion formula. So I'm going to drop that there. And so we haven't done this yet where we have two different axes. So we've got the orders and then you have the conversion rate. So now we've got something interesting to look at. So now we have this kind of steady stream. You got orders spiking, but the conversion rate didn't spike. So that probably tells me the homepage visits are really high. So let me bring that on there too. Um, yeah, that's what happened. I mean, it's not that much math, so I'm not figuring out something super insightful there. But this is where you can kind of explore as you're exploring the data, what you do want to show and figure out which pieces. You don't have to end up using everything, but I do recommend kind of dropping those in to discover what are the things you're trying to understand and then later display. So these are the homepage visits. If you just graph that, you'd be like, yeah, they spiked, awesome. But like, did order spike? And it's like, actually, they did, but like the conversion rate was actually pretty much the same. So it depends on the context that you're talking about. Like the campaign maybe you launched then did really well and brought a lot of people to the homepage, and they did order, and they ordered at approximately the same conversion rate as normal traffic, which could be fine. It really depends on your um, like context and if that's what you wanted it to do. If you expected it to be a very targeted campaign that was supposed to be super focused on the right people that would convert at a higher rate, that wouldn't be as good. But it's totally okay if you wanted to convert about the same. If you wanted to like convert, if you wanted to spend all that money on all that traffic and you got there and the conversion rate was really, 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 really low, then probably not as good of a value. So this is how you would think about how these things change. So I'm going to pull off homepage. It's really just focused on the orders and the conversion. And we're going to do two different ways to show this. One, since we have two axes, you can actually right click on that second one and click dual axis. And now they're overlaid and you can really see the differences much more obviously right now. So you can see the orders are spiking here, but the conversion rate is not spiking with them on that. But the conversion rate really spikes here, even though that jump in orders um, wasn't as much. So if we looked at the traffic, it would probably be a bump there. So this one is different than this one. So one of these things is not like the other, as Sesame Street says, and that's how you would start going to explore that. So that dual axis is one way to do that. Another thing we could do is, let's see, let's take homepage visits there off, or so it's just homepage visits, nothing else. And then we've got our conversion rates formula here, and I'm going to drop that on color and make it a lot thicker so you can see it. And so the layer of an overlay of a color, especially if it's something like a rate, helps the viewer a lot. So I'm a huge fan of this, even though it doesn't look super great right here. You can immediately tell that that massive increase in homepage visitors, the conversion was not nearly as high as this strong increase in conversion to nearly 6.9% there in this section. So that helps you tell the story and starts to uncover what might be going on across those different campaigns you would see. So you'll be doing a deeper analysis on that YouTube video of e-commerce optimization, and you'll look through a whole bunch of different other conversion rates so you can take that story and kind of dive deeper and see what the context, what the story problem is, like what campaigns were happening, what you know and don't know about the data, what you can safely speculate about, and make that really clear, what's in the data that you're sure about, and what you think might be the case that you might want to explore as well, and kind of keeping that crisp on the language of what to optimize for that. So with that, I think that's a good start to a first stream that may or may not have even worked, but welcome to Thinkometrics. Hit that like and subscribe button, the notification bell, so you can maybe go to another live stream as we do this again going forward in the future. But thanks for joining, and we will see you